Zara Bennett adjusted the hem of her thrifted navy dress and took a deep breath as she scanned the wedding reception hall. She didn't belong here, at least that's how she felt. The only reason she was attending this extravagant affair was because the bride, her childhood best friend, had insisted. "Come on, Zara," Mia had begged weeks ago. "You can't skip my wedding. Besides, you deserve a night of fun." Now, sitting at a round table draped in pristine white linen, Zara wasn't so sure. The chandeliers above cast a golden glow over the ballroom, where elegantly dressed guests sipped champagne and exchanged polite conversation. She glanced at the empty seat beside her, hoping whoever was assigned there wouldn't be someone insufferably arrogant. Then, as if summoned by fate, a deep voice spoke beside her. "Mind if I sit here?" Zara turned and found herself staring into the striking blue eyes of a man who looked like he had stepped straight out of a magazine. Sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw, and dark brown hair neatly styled. His tailored black suit fit him like it had been made just for him because, judging by the way he carried himself, it probably was. Yeah, of course," she said, shifting slightly as he took the seat beside her. He extended a hand. "Fletcher James." "Zara Bennett," she replied, shaking his hand. His grip was firm, warm. "You know the bride or groom?" he asked, filling his glass with water. "The bride. We grew up together," Zara said. "You. The groom." "Business associates," Fletcher answered smoothly. "But I suppose that doesn't make us enemies, does it?" Zara laughed. "Not unless you plan on stealing the wedding cake." He chuckled, a deep, rich sound that sent an unexpected warmth through her. "I'll try to resist." As the night went on, Zara found herself unexpectedly enjoying Fletcher's company. He was charming without being overbearing, confident but not arrogant. He asked her questions, listened intently, and even made her laugh, something she hadn't done in a while. "So, Zara, what do you do?" Fletcher asked as dinner was served. "I work at a small publishing house," she said. "Mostly editing manuscripts, juggling deadlines, trying to keep my boss from having a meltdown." "Sounds intense." "It has its moments," she admitted. "But I love stories." "Always have?" Fletcher tilted his head. "You love stories, yet you don't seem to be living in one yourself." Zara raised an eyebrow. "What's that supposed to mean?" He gave her a teasing look. "No date to the wedding, barely touching your champagne, and you keep glancing toward the exit like you're planning an escape." She sighed dramatically. "You caught me. I'm not exactly in the middle of a whirlwind romance." "Maybe you should be," Fletcher mused, taking a sip of his drink. Zara rolled her eyes. "Oh sure, let me just go find a Prince Charming in the next 5 minutes." "Why not?" Fletcher said, his expression unreadable. Before Zara could respond, the music shifted, and the bride and groom took to the dance floor. The guests clapped as the couple swayed together, lost in their own world. Zara felt a pang in her chest. She wanted that. A love that was real, deep, undeniable. "Would you like to dance?" Fletcher's voice pulled her from her thoughts. Zara hesitated. Come on," he coaxed. "You can't sit here all night." Before she could think better of it, she let him take her hand and lead her onto the dance floor. The moment his hand rested on her waist, a shiver ran up her spine. He was warm, steady, and dangerously close. "You're not terrible at this," Zara admitted as they moved together. "High praise," Fletcher said, smirking. "You're not so bad yourself." For the first time in a long time, Zara let herself relax. She forgot about the overwhelming luxury around her, forgot about how out of place she felt. All that mattered was the way Fletcher was looking at her, like she was the most interesting thing in the room. Then, just as she was starting to lose herself in the moment, a voice interrupted. "Fletcher." A well-dressed man approached them with an eager grin. "I didn't expect to see you here. I heard about the latest deal, congratulations." Fletcher stiffened slightly. "Thanks, Robert. Didn't know you were on the guest list." Robert laughed. "You know how it is, connections everywhere. But really, you never fail to impress. Your company is taking over half the market." Zara frowned slightly. "Company? Market? What was Robert talking about?" Fletcher's jaw tightened, but before he could respond, Robert turned to her. "Oh, I'm being rude. And who is this lovely lady?" "Zara Bennett," she said cautiously. "Nice to meet you, Zara," Robert said, then glanced between them. "So, Fletcher, is she your latest?" Fletcher cut him off with a sharp look. "We were just enjoying a dance, Robert." Robert raised his hands in mock surrender. Of course, of course. Well, don't let me interrupt." He winked at Zara before walking away. Zara pulled back slightly. That was weird. Fletcher exhaled. Ignore him. He likes to talk too much. But something about the interaction unsettled her. Fletcher had been so effortlessly charming all night, yet the way he tensed up just now told her there was more to him than he was letting on. And for the first time that night, Zara had the sinking feeling that she had no idea who she was really dancing with. Zara couldn't shake the unease creeping up her spine as she and Fletcher stepped off the dance floor. Something about Robert's words lingered in the back of her mind. The way Fletcher had stiffened, the careful way he had chosen his words, it all suggested there was more to him than he was letting on. She wasn't naive. She knew when someone was hiding something. Fletcher turned to her, his expression unreadable. Would you like some air? Zara hesitated but nodded. The ballroom was suddenly too warm, the golden chandeliers too bright. She followed him through an open archway onto an expansive balcony overlooking the city skyline. The night air was crisp, brushing against her skin as she leaned on the stone railing. Fletcher stood beside her, watching her closely. You're thinking about what Robert said. She didn't bother denying it. Should I be concerned? A slow exhale left him, and for the first time that evening, there was something guarded in his gaze. That depends on whether you believe everything you hear, he said, his voice measured. Zara frowned and turned to face him. I don't believe everything I hear, but I do believe what I see. And I saw you tense up like you were caught in something. Fletcher was quiet for a moment, his fingers tapping lightly against the railing. I run a business, he finally said. A large one. And with that comes people who talk too much, assume too much. That wasn't exactly an answer. What kind of business? She asked. His lips pressed together briefly before he answered. Investments, acquisitions, mergers. Zara arched a brow. That's a lot of big words to say you're wealthy. A flicker of amusement passed through his expression. Would it change how you see me? She considered that for a moment. I don't know, but I don't like surprises. Fletcher studied her carefully, as if deciding how much to reveal. Then he spoke, his voice lower, more serious. I don't usually have to explain myself, but with you, I don't want you to think I was being dishonest. Zara watched him, searching his face for any sign of deception. There was none. He was telling the truth, at least the part of it he was willing to share. She exhaled and glanced back at the city lights stretching endlessly before them. I wasn't expecting to meet someone like you tonight, she admitted. Fletcher leaned against the railing, his shoulder brushing hers. Neither was I. A quiet moment settled between them, the distant hum of the city the only sound filling the space. Finally, Fletcher turned toward her. Would you let me take you to dinner? Zara blinked, caught off guard. You mean, like, a date? His lips twitched slightly. Yes, Zara. A date. She hesitated. A part of her was screaming at her to say no, to keep things simple, safe. But another part, the part that had spent too long keeping her life predictable, whispered something else. Take a chance. Before she could overthink it, she nodded. All right. Fletcher's expression shifted, something almost triumphant flashing in his eyes. Tomorrow night? Zara exhaled a small laugh. You don't waste time, do you? Not when I know what I want. The honesty in his tone sent an unexpected warmth through her. Tomorrow night, then, she agreed. Fletcher reached into his pocket, pulled out a sleek black card, and handed it to her. My personal number. Send me your address. I'll pick you up at 7. She took the card, running her fingers over the embossed lettering. It was the kind of thing people in movies handed out, not something she ever expected to hold in her hands. Fletcher straightened. I should get back inside, but I'll see you tomorrow. With that, he turned and disappeared back into the ballroom, leaving Zara standing on the balcony, heart racing in a way she wasn't sure she was ready for. The next evening, Zara stood in front of her mirror, smoothing down the fabric of her dress. It wasn't extravagant, just a simple black number that hugged her figure without being too much. She had debated for an hour whether this was a terrible idea, but the truth was, she wanted to see him again. A sharp knock at the door pulled her from her thoughts. Taking a steadying breath, she grabbed her purse and opened it. Fletcher stood there, dressed in a dark suit, his presence commanding without effort. But this time something was different. Behind him, parked along the curb, was a sleek black car that looked like it belonged in a billionaire's driveway. Her stomach twisted. Fletcher noticed her hesitation and tilted his head. Something wrong. Zara glanced at the car, then back at him. You really weren't exaggerating about the whole business and investments thing, huh? A slow smile curved his lips. Is that a problem? She considered that for a moment, then shook her head. Not yet. Fletcher opened the car door for her. Then let's go. She slid inside, the interior as luxurious as she expected. When Fletcher joined her, the driver pulled away from the curb, navigating through the city streets with practiced ease. Zara turned to him. So, where are we going? You'll see. She narrowed her eyes. You like keeping secrets, don't you? Fletcher's expression remained unreadable. Only the interesting ones. 20 minutes later, the car pulled up in front of a restaurant that looked like it required a personal invitation just to step inside. Zara wasn't sure whether to be impressed or overwhelmed. Fletcher stepped out first and held out a hand. She hesitated briefly before taking it, letting him guide her toward the entrance. Inside, the restaurant was all dim lighting, velvet booths, and quiet conversations. A waiter greeted them immediately and led them to a private table near a glass wall overlooking the city. Zara slid into her seat, watching Fletcher carefully as he ordered a bottle of wine without glancing at the menu. You've been here before, she observed. A few times. She leaned forward. Do you always bring unsuspecting women to places like this? Fletcher's gaze locked onto hers. No. Just you. The intensity in his voice sent an unexpected flutter through her chest. The waiter returned with the wine, pouring them each a glass before disappearing again. Zara took a sip, letting the richness of the drink settle on her tongue before speaking. So, tell me something real about you. No business talk. Fletcher studied her for a moment, then set his glass down. All right. I don't like small talk. I prefer people who don't tiptoe around things. She arched a brow. Sounds like a lonely way to live. Sometimes, he admitted. But I've found that honesty is worth more than pleasantries. Zara tilted her head. Then be honest. Why did you ask me to dinner? Fletcher didn't hesitate. Because you don't look at me like the rest of them do. Something in his voice made her pulse quicken. And how did the rest of them look at you? She asked. Like a means to an end. She held his gaze, her fingers tightening around her glass. And what do you see when you look at me? Fletcher leaned forward slightly, his voice lower, more certain. Something I don't want to let slip away. Zara had no idea how Fletcher did it, but every word he spoke seemed to pull her further into his orbit. His presence was magnetic, his confidence effortless, but it was the way he looked at her like she was something rare and unexpected that made her pulse unsteady. She picked up her glass, letting the cool rim press against her lips before taking a sip. That's a dangerous thing to say. Fletcher didn't lean back, didn't waver. Only if it's not true. She exhaled softly, shaking her head. You don't even know me. His fingers traced the stem of his wine glass. I know enough. Zara's throat tightened. This was unfamiliar territory. Men didn't look at her like this, didn't speak with such certainty. Most people hesitated, unsure of their own feelings, but Fletcher he moved like a man who knew exactly what he wanted and had no intention of letting uncertainty get in his way. So what is it that you think you know? She challenged. His eyes didn't leave hers. You don't trust easily, but you want to. You tell yourself that you're fine on your own, but deep down you're tired of standing on the sidelines, watching everyone else find what you're afraid to reach for. Her fingers curled slightly against the tablecloth. That's a bold assumption. Fletcher's voice softened, but the weight of it settled deep in her chest. Is it wrong? Zara opened her mouth, but no words came. Because no, it wasn't wrong. It was painfully, infuriatingly accurate. She tore her gaze away, focusing on the flickering candle at the center of the table. You don't play fair. I never claimed to. A tension-filled silence stretched between them before Fletcher finally shifted, lifting his glass once more. Tell me something about you, then. Something real. She considered him carefully. I used to dream about writing my own books instead of editing someone else's. His head tilted slightly. Why used to? Zara let out a breath, fingers brushing the rim of her plate. Because reality doesn't always make room for dreams. Fletcher's expression darkened slightly. That's a shame. She gave a small shrug. It's life. He studied her for a moment, then set his glass down with quiet finality. Doesn't have to be. There was something in his voice, something firm, like an unspoken promise, but before she could press him on it, the waiter appeared, clearing their plates and replacing them with dessert. A rich chocolate torte was placed in front of her, but Zara barely noticed. Her mind was too tangled in Fletcher's words, in the way he spoke as if limitations didn't exist for him. She picked up her fork, cutting into the dessert. You talk like you've never had to hear the word no before. Fletcher's lips twitched slightly. I don't hear it often. Zara shook her head, taking a bite of the dessert. That explains a lot. His gaze never wavered. And yet, you're not running. She set her fork down, meeting his eyes. Not yet. Something flickered in his expression, approval, perhaps. But it was fleeting, replaced by something deeper. Then I'll take that as a challenge. Zara wasn't sure if she should be intrigued or terrified. By the time Fletcher's car pulled up to her apartment building, Zara was still trying to process everything that had happened. The dinner, the conversation, the way he peeled back layers of her that she hadn't even realized were visible. Fletcher opened her door, offering his hand. She took it, stepping out onto the sidewalk. The night air was cooler now, carrying the distant hum of the city. She turned to face him, her pulse unsteady. I don't do this. His brow lifted slightly. Dinner. She shook her head. Letting people in this fast. Fletcher's fingers brushed against hers. His touch light but deliberate. Maybe you should. Zara swallowed. Why? His voice was quiet but certain. Because some things are worth the risk. Her breath caught. For a moment, all she could hear was the sound of her own heartbeat. Then, before she could talk herself out of it, she rose onto her toes and pressed a soft kiss to his cheek. It was brief, barely more than a whisper of contact. But the way Fletcher's fingers tightened slightly against hers told her he hadn't expected it. She stepped back, her own breath uneven. Good night, Fletcher. His eyes held hers, something unreadable flickering in their depths. Good night, Zara. She turned and walked up the steps to her building, her heart pounding with every step. As she reached her door, she had the sinking feeling that she had just let someone dangerous into her life. And for the first time in a long time, she wasn't sure if she wanted to stop it. Zara's fingers hovered over her phone, her mind tangled in thoughts she wasn't ready to name. Fletcher had left his mark on her in ways she hadn't expected. The way he listened, the way he saw through her defenses with ease, it was both exhilarating and terrifying. A soft knock at her door pulled her from her thoughts. When she opened it, she froze. Fletcher stood there, holding a small, elegant box wrapped in silver paper. I was in the neighborhood, he said, his tone casual but his eyes anything but. Zara folded her arms, arching an eyebrow. You were in the neighborhood? I might have taken a detour. He extended the box toward her. She hesitated before taking it, the weight of it solid in her hands. What is this? Open it and find out. She untied the ribbon and lifted the lid, revealing a delicate bracelet, thin gold with a single sapphire nestled in the center. It was understated but exquisite. Fletcher. I saw it and thought of you. Zara swallowed, her fingers grazing the cool metal. You can't just buy me things. Why not? Because, she struggled for the right words. Because this isn't normal. Fletcher's expression didn't waver. Nothing about this is normal. Her pulse quickened. That's exactly what scares me. His gaze softened slightly, but he didn't step back. Zara, I don't do things halfway. When I want something, I go after it. She set the box down, pressing her palms against the doorframe as if that could steady her. And what exactly do you want? His answer was immediate. You. Her breath hitched. There was no hesitation, no room for doubt. He said it like a fact, like something undeniable. Zara's world had always been built on caution, on measured steps. But Fletcher James was a storm, sweeping through her carefully constructed walls with no regard for the aftermath. I don't know how to do this, she admitted, her voice quieter now. Fletcher stepped closer, his presence overwhelming in the best way. Then let me show you. She exhaled slowly. This is insane. A hint of amusement flickered in his eyes. Maybe. Zara looked down at the bracelet, then back at him. You're not going to let me run from this, are you? No. Her lips parted, a mixture of frustration and something dangerously close to surrender flickering in her expression. You're impossible. And yet, here we are. She shook her head but didn't push him away. Fletcher reached for her hand, his touch warm and steady. Come with me. Zara hesitated. Where? You'll see. Something about his tone made it impossible to refuse. Against every ounce of logic, she grabbed her coat and followed him out the door. The city stretched out before them as the car wound its way through unfamiliar streets. Fletcher hadn't told her where they were going, and for once she didn't press him. When they finally stopped, she blinked in surprise. The rooftop terrace overlooked the skyline, fairy lights strung across the space, casting a soft glow over the table set for two. Zara turned to him. You did all this? Fletcher slipped his hands into his pockets. I wanted to give you something that wasn't about money. Just us. Her throat tightened. She wasn't used to this, to being pursued with such purpose. She stepped closer, her fingers brushing against his sleeve. You don't give up, do you? Not when it matters. Zara exhaled, shaking her head, but this time there was no hesitation. She let him pull out her chair, let herself sink into the moment. As the night unfolded, Zara found herself letting go just a little more. Fletcher wasn't just wealth and confidence. He was thoughtful. He listened. He made her laugh in ways she hadn't in years. By the time dessert arrived, something inside her had shifted. Fletcher reached across the table, catching her fingers in his. Tell me what you're thinking. Zara met his gaze, her heart pounding. That I might be in trouble. His thumb traced slow circles against her skin. That depends on whether you're willing to fall. Zara's breath caught, a war waging in her chest. But as she looked at him, at the man who had walked into her life so unexpectedly, she realized something. She was already falling. Zara had never been one to let her emotions spiral out of control, but sitting across from Fletcher, feeling the weight of his gaze as his fingers brushed lightly against hers, she realized she was dangerously close to losing herself in something she couldn't define. The rooftop setting, the way he had gone out of his way to make the night feel intimate rather than extravagant, it all chipped away at the walls she had spent years building. Fletcher wasn't just another man who flaunted his wealth. He was deliberate, intentional, and worst of all, he made her feel seen. And that terrified her. She pulled her hand away slowly, needing space to think. This is moving fast. Fletcher didn't argue. It is. She expected him to push, to try and convince her that there was nothing to be afraid of. Instead, he leaned back in his chair, watching her carefully. Tell me what you need. Zara wasn't sure how to answer that. No one had ever asked her before. She let out a slow breath. I need to know this isn't just another game for you. Fletcher's expression darkened, but not with anger. Something else flickered in his eyes, something serious. You think this is a game? I don't know, she admitted. Men like you. His lips parted slightly as if he already knew where she was going. Men like me. Zara gestured vaguely. You come into a room and command attention without trying. You're confident, successful, and you probably have more women throwing themselves at you than you know what to do with. Fletcher let out a quiet breath, shaking his head. You think I enjoy any of that? She hesitated. Don't you? His gaze locked onto hers with an intensity that made her stomach tighten. It's exhausting, Zara. She hadn't expected that answer. He leaned forward, resting his forearms on the table. I don't care about the attention. I don't want people who only see me for my name, my success, my wealth. I want something real. Zara swallowed hard. She believed him, God help her, she did. But believing him didn't make this any less terrifying. She reached for her glass, needing something to occupy her hands. I don't know how to be what you're looking for. Fletcher's voice softened. I'm not asking you to be anything other than yourself. The sincerity in his tone sent a shiver down her spine. She stared at him, trying to process how, in just a matter of days, this man had managed to unravel everything she thought she knew about herself. Fletcher watched her carefully, as if waiting to see if she would run. But for once, Zara didn't want to run. She let out a quiet laugh, shaking her head. You're relentless. A small smile tugged at his lips. When it matters. Zara exhaled, her shoulders slumping slightly. I don't know what this is yet. Then let's figure it out together. There was no pressure in his voice, no demand. Just quiet certainty. And somehow that was what made her decision for her. She nodded, her pulse unsteady. Okay. Fletcher's expression didn't change much, but there was something in his eyes, a flicker of triumph, maybe. Not because he had one, but because she had chosen to stay. And for the first time in a long time, Zara felt like she had made the right choice. The next few weeks passed in a blur of late-night conversations, stolen glances, and moments that made Zara question everything she thought she knew about love. Fletcher didn't just invite her into his world, he made space for her in it. He never flaunted his wealth, never tried to impress her with expensive gifts or grand gestures that felt hollow. Instead, he learned her favorite coffee order and had it waiting for her when she was running late. He listened when she talked about work and asked questions that proved he actually cared. And when he kissed her for the first time on a quiet evening after a long day, it wasn't rushed or demanding. It was slow, deliberate, like he was savoring every second. Zara had never fallen for someone this fast before, and yet here she was. She was falling. And there was no stopping it. One evening, as they walked through the city, Fletcher suddenly stopped in front of a bookstore. Zara frowned. "What are we doing?" He nodded toward the glass window where a small display of journals and writing guides was arranged. "You told me once that you used to dream about writing your own books." Her stomach twisted. "That was a long time ago." Fletcher didn't look away. "So?" Zara let out a quiet laugh, shaking her head. "It's not that simple." "Why not?" She stared at him, unable to put into words the years of fear, the doubt that had held her back. "Because what if I fail?" Fletcher's expression didn't waver. "And what if you don't?" Her throat tightened. He reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. "You're stronger than you think, Zara." She swallowed hard, something breaking open inside her. No one had ever believed in her like this before. She looked back at the bookstore, at the dream she had buried so long ago. And for the first time in years, she let herself imagine what it would be like to reach for it again. Months passed, and Zara found herself stepping into a life she never thought she would have. She started writing again. Not for anyone else, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. Fletcher stood by her through all of it, never pushing, never demanding. Just steady, constant, unwavering in his belief in her. And somewhere along the way, she realized something. She loved him. Not because of his wealth, his success, or the way he could command a room with nothing more than a glance. She loved him because he saw her. Because he had walked into her life when she least expected it and shown her that love didn't have to be complicated. Sometimes it was as simple as sitting beside a stranger at a wedding and realizing, against all odds, that he was exactly what she had been waiting for. Fletcher stood beside her as she signed the contract for her first book deal, his hand resting gently on the small of her back. As she put the pen down, he leaned in close. "I told you." She laughed, shaking her head. "You're impossible." His lips brushed against her temple. "And yet, here we are." Zara turned to face him, her heart full. She had spent so long believing love was something that happened to other people. Now, as Fletcher pulled her into his arms, she knew the truth. Love had been waiting for her all along, and it had found her in the most unexpected place. Zara stood on the rooftop terrace, the city twinkling beneath her as she let the cool night air settle around her. Fletcher was just inside, speaking with one of his business associates who had unexpectedly called. She took the moment alone to process everything that had brought her here. Her fingers traced the delicate bracelet on her wrist, the one Fletcher had given her that night outside her apartment. It had become something of a constant, a quiet reminder that things had changed. That she had changed. Months ago, she had been a woman who kept her dreams locked away, who never let herself imagine a life beyond her carefully maintained reality. And now she was someone who had taken risks, who had stepped into the unknown and found something she never thought she would love. The terrace door opened behind her, and a familiar warmth settled at her back as Fletcher stepped beside her. "Are you tired?" he asked, his voice low. She shook her head. "Just thinking." He studied her for a moment before turning his gaze to the skyline. "Good thoughts, I hope?" Zara exhaled softly. "Mostly." Fletcher reached for her hand, intertwining their fingers effortlessly. "Tell me." She hesitated, but only for a second. "I never expected any of this." "You." "Us." His grip on her hand tightened slightly. "Neither did I." She glanced at him, searching his face. "And yet, you never doubted it." Fletcher turned his body fully toward her, his expression serious. "I knew what I wanted." Her heart skipped. "And what if I had walked away?" A flicker of something unreadable passed through his eyes. "I would have let you." She blinked at him in surprise. "I'm not the kind of man who forces someone to stay," he continued. "But I would have made sure you knew exactly what you were walking away from." Zara let out a quiet laugh, shaking her head. "You're impossible." Fletcher's lips twitched. "So I've been told." She sighed, leaning her weight slightly against him. I don't regret staying. His fingers brushed over her knuckles. Good. She glanced up at him, something teasing in her expression. You're very sure of yourself. He met her gaze, his voice quieter now. Only when it comes to you. Her breath caught, the sincerity in his words settling deep. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Fletcher shifted slightly, reaching into his pocket. Zara frowned, watching as he pulled out a small velvet box. Her heart nearly stopped. Zara. His voice was steady, unwavering, but there was something uncharacteristically vulnerable in his eyes. I've never wanted anything the way I want you. Her pulse pounded as he slowly lowered himself onto one knee. I told you once that I don't do things halfway, he continued, and I meant it. Loving you has never been a question for me. You are the best decision I've ever made. Zara covered her mouth with her hand, her eyes stinging with unshed tears. Fletcher opened the box, revealing a ring that was both elegant and timeless, just like him. Marry me, he said, his voice raw with emotion. No hesitation, no second guessing. Just you and me, the way it was always meant to be. Tears slipped down her cheeks, but she didn't care. There was no doubt, no fear, no hesitation. She nodded. Yes. Fletcher let out a breath, something like relief flashing in his expression, as he slid the ring onto her finger and stood, pulling her into his arms. Zara laughed against his chest, overwhelmed, breathless, in love. He kissed her then, slow and deep, as if sealing the moment permanently between them. And in that instant Zara knew this was it. This was everything. The wedding was a dream, a perfect blend of elegance and intimacy. Fletcher made sure every detail reflected them, not just grandeur. It wasn't about extravagance, it was about love. As Zara walked down the aisle, her eyes locked onto his, she felt weightless. Every step brought her closer to him, to forever. When she finally reached him, Fletcher took her hands, his grip steady. Sure. You are, he murmured softly, the best thing that has ever happened to me. Zara smiled, tears shimmering in her eyes. And you are mine. The vows were exchanged, promises spoken, and when Fletcher kissed her, the world fell away. It was only them. It had always been only them. A year later, Zara sat in the sunlit study of their home, flipping through the pages of her published novel. Her name was printed across the cover, a dream turned reality. Fletcher entered the room, pausing when he saw her holding the book. A slow smile spread across his lips. Proud of yourself? He asked, crossing the room to her. Zara looked up at him, her heart full. Proud of us. Fletcher leaned down, brushing a kiss against her forehead. I told you, didn't I? She laughed, shaking her head. Yes, yes. You were right. He grinned, settling beside her. Say it again. Zara rolled her eyes playfully but wrapped her arms around his neck. You were right? Fletcher kissed her, deep and lingering. And as Zara melted into him, she knew this was her forever. A love she had never expected. And one she would never let go.